Thanks again for joining us. I would like to start with a question. Why did you choose entrepreneurship? Just a general
Right.
question. After your
Firstly,
HKU graduation.
right. So, firstly, thank you, Nivesh, for having me on this call to interview me for your project, for your course. And I started out by asking you whether this was a Common Core course or not, because I remember very close to my heart how much I loved the Common Core courses, particularly the ones in CCHU. So good to know that you're enjoying these courses as well. Now let's come to your question. You asked me why entrepreneurship, which is a brilliant question. Well, I'll be honest. So, as far as my journey goes, when I was at HKU, which was between 2017 to 21, and I was pursuing the IBGM degree over there. So, from the very beginning, my mindset was to be getting a great job once I'm done with my graduation. Because, to be honest, that was really the objective with which all students across nationalities and batches were working. So, naturally, that was also my mindset that, I want to land a great job with a great institution. And I did so as well. It's a different story that I did not end up taking that job offer up. I had to decline and come back to India for some family commitments. But my entrepreneurial experience started in HKU in my final year, which is when one of my batchmates and I we got together to incorporate a company which was both of our first startup, and this was called Edillery, which was basically short for edible cutlery, and we incubated with iDendron at HKU. We were also incubating with the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park. They were generous enough to provide us with some seed funding as well. And I think it is during that experience of mine and through Edillery when we participated in the Hult Prize, which is this globally acclaimed competition for impact startups being born out of universities. I think it is that experience that opened me up to the potential that the entrepreneurship space holds, because truly sky is the limit. So, in terms of the kind of money that you can make, but more so the kind of impact that you can deliver, uh, there is definitely much more room to be doing great work in entrepreneurship because it's full of innovation and problem solving and disruption, and so it's a very interesting field. And that is how I realized that, well, perhaps I'm made for the entrepreneurial journey in life. So after that, I got back to India and got busy with another entrepreneurial venture, which we can get into in your next questions.
Yeah. Pretty, inspiring story how you get into entrepreneurship. So, I would like to ask more about the startup that you have mentioned, which was Edillery. The
Mhm.
What does your startup does, and is it like, are you still doing that startup? Like, is it
Right.
still?
So understood. So Edillery, we started in April of 2021. So I was really in my final semester at the time. And I'll be honest, the reason we started Edillery was not actually to be doing business as our first priority, but
Mhm.
rather to be participating in the Hult Prize, which was a very acclaimed competition, as I mentioned. And we were hoping that would really add to our CVs. And so when we do apply to the Morgan Stanleys and the Goldman Sachs of the world, then we'll be considered very favorably. So that was how we got into it. But once we participated in the Hult Prize, once we started building Edillery, we realized that let's just go the entrepreneurial way. So currently, Edillery is not live anymore. The company is still active in Hong Kong, although our operations we've had to discontinue because I decided to move on to a larger issue, which was basically uh, working with a lot of brands like Edillery. So right now, the venture that I'm doing, my startup presently is called Impacto. I'm the founder and CEO, and Impacto's birth story traces back to Edillery. Because when I was in London for the Global Accelerator of the Hult Prize representing Edillery, um, after the whole competition was wrapped up, I realized that there were these 40 startups that were present at the accelerator in London, and they had come from all over the world. And all of them were working on fantastic impact themes, right? Something to do with sustainability, something to do with social impact. And one thing that struck me was that these brands were not really getting the kind of attention and traction that they deserved. So that's how on the very last day at Hult Prize, I was just sitting with myself, busy with my thoughts, and the idea about Impacto came to mind that perhaps there is, potential for a platform out there that brings several such brands together, right? Several Edilleries and several other brands working on sustainability, on social impact. You bring them under a common hood, under a common umbrella, and then you drive active sales and marketing and relationship building for these brands. So Impacto currently is essentially a green Amazon plus Alibaba. So we work with a lot of institutions and businesses like corporates and schools and hotels to be sourcing for them, responsibly sourcing eco-friendly, sustainable products for them, helping adopt and incorporate greener practices, install greener technologies on their premises. So that is what Impacto does on the B2B front. On the B2C side, we also tested things out as an e-commerce marketplace platform for consumers to be making green purchases. And now we've also started working with the various governments here in India to be driving some environmental projects at scale.
Hmm.
So that's what Impacto does.
Yeah, seems like Impacto is really making a great impact in this world.
Very well.
Uh, so, I would like to ask more about the pricing strategy. Like, how do you earn money with the Impacto? And also,
Right.
what's your main motive? Like, earning money or to make impact? Like, what is your main, like, what's the first thing?
That's a good question. Okay, so Impacto's revenue model is essentially three-tiered. So on one side, we make commissions on the sales that we make on behalf of our vendors, our partner brands. The second is subscriptions that our vendors basically, subscribe to certain services that we provide, and for that we charge various fees. And the third is consultancy. So on the client side, we have, as I mentioned, a range of clients across different buckets, different fields. So they are often in need of the right advisory and the right consultation on how they should be sustainable, what it is that they should be doing to reduce their carbon footprints, their carbon emissions, and that is where we consult them. So that is how we earn a third revenue stream as well. So that is our pricing strategy, or our revenue model, so to say. Um, and the next part of your question was the motive, whether we are here to make a buck or make impact. And I think this is more of a personal thing than a professional mindset. I am just very passionate about positive impact, right? To be improving things for the planet as well as for the people that live on it.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, my main objective is the impact that comes by virtue of our work. But that impact will only be sustainable so long as we have the financial resources to keep working, keep going, growing. And therefore, it's important to be making that profit to sustain ourselves, to have our teams in place, to have access to various tools and technologies that we require in day-to-day operations at Impacto. But yes, the main motive is always impact. But we do enjoy making the money behind it to be able to amplify the impact even more.
Mhm. So my next question would be more the USP of Impacto. How
Mhm.
Impacto differentiate itself from the competitors in the market, and is there any big player in the market doing the same thing?
Right. So the first and foremost differentiator for Impacto is that we are a 360-degree full stack sustainability solution. So there are a lot of players out there in the climate space in India as well as in Hong Kong as well as globally across countries. But naturally, for sake of clarity and focus, and to make things easier from a sectoral focus, all these ventures are working on very specific things, right? Very specific solutions or very specific products. So being an aggregator, Impacto is definitely differentiating itself from all the other players by offering any and every possible solution that is linked to sustainability. I will give you an example. So let's say you want to buy, a T-shirt or a pair of shoes that is greener than the options available in the market. So you, for one, can be making a purchase from us, a one-off purchase for these products that are relevant only to you, right? So this is an example at an individual level. If we take this further to the institutional level, then we are also dealing in products like biofuels, right? Now, biofuels, it's not relevant to you. You have no use for it. Biofuels are going to thermal power plants and to industries that have a lot of, coal burning that they do for their energy needs. And what we are trying to do is sell to them these biofuels as a much cleaner alternative, as a much cleaner fuel. So all the way from vegan food to vegan leather, from the kind of things that I mentioned to you, sustainable garments and footwear to industrial products. The product portfolio that we have behind us is very large. We deal in thousands of products and hundreds of services. So naturally, that is the first differentiator here at Impacto. The second differentiator is that we do not charge anything before we are able to add value for our clients. So there are other players in the market that obviously have their take rates very defined and very rigid, but there is an enormous amount of flexibility that Impacto brings to the table for our clients and for other partners, so that the main focus remains to be the positive impact that everybody is looking to deliver. And we do not want any efforts to go to waste just because a startup or a venture is rigid with its processes. So the flexibility that we have is also something that truly differentiates us, and this is something that not uh, that's not this isn't something that I believe. This is something that I hear from our clients, because they worked with other people in this space as well that are trying to do something similar as Impacto is. But you also asked if there's a very large player out there in the market. So there are players, definitely. Two of them are fairly large in India, and I'm happy to name them because I truly believe that in this space we are not dealing with competition, we are dealing with collaboration. So we often try to even collaborate with our own competitors, so to say. So Amala Earth is a phenomenal platform, and Brown Living is another platform. The only difference is that these two platforms are purely consumer focused. So they have e-commerce marketplaces that cater purely to consumers. And even if they do service business clients, it is only, from time to time. But for us, in addition to servicing consumers, we are also serving a range of other clients. So that is how we differ from them as well.
Yeah. So after like basically Impacto does like it's like full solution for the sustainable thing, whether it's like business or a consumer. So I
Absolutely.
yeah. So basically I have watched a lot of Shark Tank episodes, and
Mhm.
every time most of the sharks they usually say that instead of doing 20 different things, you take one thing, you let's say starting may you do all different things, and then you try to
Mhm.
find that market fit, and then once you
Mhm.
find that fit, you double down on that one thing so that you can focus on that, and then you
Correct.
become a really big player in that space. And once you're a big player, and then start doing different other things. So what's your take on that?
That's a brilliant question, actually, and it is a question that we have to answer for ourselves every day, more or less, because if right now we are a bootstrapped startup, so we haven't fundraised yet, but we are on the brink of fundraising soon. And when I do speak with potential investors for their guidance and how is it that we should be looking at things and working with things here at Impacto, then this is something that they often bring up. What you just said, that
Yeah.
you're probably stretching yourself a little too thin, and you're putting your hands into too many categories, so that's going to make things difficult. And I agree with that to a large extent. I also disagree with it to some extent, because it's definitely a risk and reward kind of a analysis that you have to look at it with. Uh, Dealing in so many categories and being like a 360-degree aggregator definitely is risky, because people may say we lack the focus or the clarity to be going very deep and all the way, in one particular thing, as you mentioned. Because the traditional approach or the template approach is that, okay, take that one thing first, become very big in that, and then expand to other things. But the thing about the climate space is that sustainability is a very vast subject area, right? And it is linked with multiple complexities. So we want to be an organization that is able to add value and deliver solutions in a way that proves to be very full stack for the clients that we are delivering for. So naturally, uh, it sometimes, I'll give you an example. So I was working on one of our orders today. I happened to be reached out by someone at an educational institution yesterday, and they want to be sourcing eco-friendly gift hampers for one of their events. Now, if they had to, curate these hampers themselves, that hamper is supposed to have 8 products, and every product is being sold by a different vendor. So you are having to deal with 8 vendors, right?
Yeah.
Now, the logistics of that, the complexities of that are very grave. So it can be very time taking, it can be very cost heavy, as well as operationally heavy if they are trying to source those 8 products from 8 different vendors themselves. Now,
Hmm.
enter Impacto. What we are doing for them is they only have to talk to us, right? So they only have to deal with us. We are a single window system for them. So their headache of having to deal with 8 different vendors and source these products individually, all of that we've taken away. So that is the value we're bringing to the table.
Hmm. So basically, it's like you are like you are Alibaba plus Amazon, as you have mentioned, right? So I think
Correct.
there's a lot of players in the B2C as well, right? D2C market, there's a lot of players. So if let's say some investor says to you today, that hey, I'll fund you guys, I'll give you funding, but you have to choose
Mhm.
one business model. Either go B2B,
Right.
either B2C. What are you gonna choose?
Uh, That's really a question that puts me on the spot, but I'm glad that you're thinking like that. See, it's hard to give an answer off the cuff, because there will have to be a lot of thinking as well as evaluations that go into making that decision. But from the experience that I've had so far working in this space, I think we will continue to stick to the B2B side of things, and really laser focus on servicing institutions, because of multiple reasons. So I'll give you maybe a couple of those
Mhm.
reasons. One, of course, is the uh, I won't say ease, but the efficiency with which you can penetrate the market. Now, I can either try to sell that one pair of shoes to you, right? And
Oh,
to sell,
I think, sorry for disruption, but I think it's 5 seconds meeting 1 hour. I'll send you a different link. Would
yeah,
you
yeah,
be
do
happy
that.
to Yeah, thanks a lot. Oh, it haven't ended. Okay, I thought it's gonna end because they sent a message that it's 30 minutes. Okay, now
It's not 30 minutes yet. It's 28:28. So maybe in a minute and a half it'll end.
oh, okay.
Never mind.
Yeah,
So we can continue, and if it drops, then just send me another link.
yeah. Sorry for disruption. Yeah. So you were saying that you're gonna go to the B2B.
Correct. We
So
would stick to the B2B side of things for a couple of reasons. One major reason is, if I want to sell 1,000 pieces of shoes, right? I will either have to go and convince 1,000 different consumers to buy one piece each, or I can just go to the H&Ms and the Zaras of the world and have them source those 1,000 pieces or maybe many more in a single order. So that makes things a lot more sustainable for us as far as market penetration goes, right? Go to market, as we call it in the startup terminology. So B2B offers higher ticket sizes, right? Because they will
yeah.
be purchasing in volume. B2B offers recurring sales also. I'll give you an example. So see, here's a product which is basically 100% recycled A4 copier paper. Okay,
Yeah.
so you can see the ream inside,
Yeah.
right? So this is the same copier paper that you and I and HKU and institutions all over the world put in the printers to print various circulars and worksheets and other documents for their students and teachers and whatnot. But the paper that is being used currently all over the world, that is made out of virgin wood, right? And it is
Yeah.
bleached. So that comes along with a lot of carbon emissions, a lot of felling of trees, a lot of water consumption in the manufacturing process, as well as a lot of chemical contamination because that paper is bleached. Now, this is an interesting solution, which is an exact replica of the same paper that we are using, right? The only difference is it is made entirely out of waste paper, meaning it's 100% recycled. So not a single tree has been cut to make this paper. Plus, the water that is used to manufacture this paper is 50% lesser than the water that is required by traditional manufacturing. In addition to that, this is unbleached paper. So the chemical contamination aspect of things also goes away, right? So
Yeah.
essentially, what I'm trying to say is it's a much better product, keeping the environment in mind, and it also preserves the utility that we need, right? I use this own paper in my house. I use it everywhere, right? You can make notebooks out of it. Here's a
Oh.
notebook that's made out of that very paper, correct? So the
Hmm.
example I was giving you is that we source this for certain educational institutions here in India. You
Oh.
may have heard of the Manav Rachna chain of schools and universities, right? So
Yeah.
Manav Rachna is one of
Mhm.
our clients.
Oh.
Now they are purchasing this paper from us every quarter. So it is recurring revenue for us, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because they are using it with that pace and they need it again and again.
Yeah.
But an individual is not going to have that much of a consumption need, right? So
True.
therefore, B2B offers several advantages for a nascent startup like us, that we want to stick to this arena for sure. The third and final advantage that I can mention to you is also that because we're bootstrapped, going the B2C route right now is not possible. Hence, we made a pivot. We started B2C, but we pivoted
Hmm.
to B2B. Why did we do that? Because today the market is such and the technological advancement is such that if you want to be successful in the B2C or the D2C space, then you
Hmm.
require a lot of capital. That capital goes towards cash burn. That cash burn is basically fueling the performance marketing and the influencer marketing and all the other sales and marketing activities that are very much needed to be successful in that space. Now, to make this sale to Manav Rachna, I did not have to spend even a single penny on running any ads on Instagram or on Facebook or on YouTube. What
Hmm.
did I have to do? I had to look to my network, right? So
Yeah.
you reached out to me on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
How our B2B marketing works is we simply connect with relevant people on LinkedIn, right? Who are, say, CSR heads or chief sustainability officers at these institutions that we are reaching out to. And
Hmm.
then we make that pitch to them. In doing so, it is barely any cost for us. So the CAC, as we call it, the customer
Yeah.
acquisition
That's my.
cost, is much lower compared to how it would be for us B2C. So there are multiple examples, as I said, and I've quoted most of them for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's like quite a real thing because B2C you need to spend a lot of money for brand positioning. There's a lot of stuff, and I think yeah, B2B. I agree with you. B2B is quite a bit easier than B2C. B2C brand making a like a big B2C brand, it's quite hard. You need like a lot of
Correct.
fund and all
Correct.
this. Yeah. So you were talking about the pivot in between. So did you like now? Are you in the B2C space, or did you are completely shifted to B2B place?
Now we've more or less fully shifted to the B2B side of things.
Hmm. Okay, so basically you are Alibaba, but for sustainable things.
Correct, correct. But we continue to operate our B2C marketplace as well. It's just that we are not very actively, pumping any cash burn behind the marketing and the sales in it.
Oh, okay, yeah. So basically, when I was asking you about the like what's your focus doing all different things, I had like read some case study. It was basically a healthcare brand. It
Mm-hmm.
before COVID, what they did was they were trying to be everything for a hospital, like 360-degree for a hospital. Every
I see.
medication need will supply. You need to hire doctors will supply. You need to hire nurses will supply. Like everything for the
Got it.
hospital. But then they tried for 2 years. They failed completely,
Mm-hmm.
and what they did was then they shut down everything. They took one thing, we'll supply nurses to hospitals, we'll provide you nurses, nothing else. They shut down every different thing. They focus on one only, nurses, and they raised like $300 million after 2 years of that.
300 million. Okay.
Yeah, 300 million US dollars, and now they are doing 360-degree. They're doing everything what they were trying to
Understood.
do initially.
That's a very good example, and thank you for sharing that. In fact, I would be grateful if you can also share the case study with me. I would love to
Yeah,
go through it.
I'll find the name of the company. I forgot. I read it like a year.
Definitely, definitely. See, the thing about startups is there is no rule book. There is, no set manual by which you operate. Uh, Therefore, it is really a journey of discovery, right? You
Mm.
need to go through the trial and error process multiple times, over and over again, hit and try, hit and try, hit and try, and only then do you arrive at what we call the product market fit. That,
Yeah.
what is the value proposition that you're offering that is so sticky that your consumers, your customers are running to you for it and staying with you. The retention is high. So we are also in that process. It's not like Impacto has cracked it already. In fact, we are constantly at the figuring out stage. But we will soon crack it. And in order to be able to do that effectively, we are dealing in all of these categories because we ourselves are also trying to assess where it is that we will be able to gain maximum traction. We want to be able to experiment with everything once, really understand the ins and outs of the trade before we can put all the eggs in one basket and then go all out with it. But we will soon do that. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, you will. And yeah, so yeah, you mentioned that you still couldn't. Yeah, you're still in the process of finding your PMF, product market fit. And
Correct.
I want to ask, like, how many times have you changed your business model or like operations of your startup? I think it's been 2 years and 11 months, if I remember from your LinkedIn profile, since the
Right.
Impacto has been on. So,
Yeah.
how many times you have changed the your business model, or how your startups work, or your categories you're working in?
So we've only made one change till now. When we pivoted from B2C to B2B, right? And then we also started working on some government projects, as I mentioned. But that is something that goes along on the side. It's not like we've completely pivoted to working with the government now. That's not how it is. So only one change is the answer. But at the same time, we need to keep assessing and uh, sort of shaping our strategies, our approaches. So the business model stays intact, but within the business model, the various strategies, the various methods, the various approaches on how we can get the kind of growth and the traction that we need, that is something that, of course, keeps changing from time to time.
So yeah, my next question would be, as you know, you are operating in a sustainability sector, sustainability category. So how do you maintain the trust with your consumer? Like, how do you make them believe that, okay, this thing that I'm supplying to you, it's 100% sustainable, eco-friendly?
Right.
How do you do that?
Good question. Very good question. So before I answer that, let me tell you there's nothing as 100% sustainability. Okay. You can be 100% plastic free because if there's zero plastic, that's 100% plastic free. But sustainability does not have a single uniform definition, sorry, in the whole world, right? So there is no way that you can be 100% sustainable. What you can be is relatively way more sustainable than you presently are. So it's a concept of relativity, right? It
Yeah.
is not something that you can quantify in absolute terms yet.
Mhm.
Perhaps we will get to a stage where we are able to do that as well. And by we, I mean the entire world, the entire space, right?
Yeah.
Okay, coming to the verification and the trust angles. So Impacto is a filter for something that the industry calls greenwashing. Okay, so what
Mhm.
greenwashing basically means is that you are using the sustainability tag and label and the mileage that it can provide to you just for the marketing purposes, right? But beneath what you are saying, your processes, your products, your practices, they're not truly sustainable. So it's essentially a false practice. That is what greenwashing is. That someone is saying they are sustainable, but if you look into them objectively, analytically, then they don't come across to be sustainable. So they're greenwashing. So what Impacto is doing is trying to filter this very evil in the industry. And how we do that is mainly in three ways. One is a questionnaire, a very objective, detailed questionnaire that we share with all of our vendors before we onboard them. So the onboarding process starts with that. In that questionnaire, we try to assess a lot of the things to do with the materials that they use, the manufacturing practices that they apply, how much waste is that generating, how much water is being consumed, how much electricity is being consumed. So the various facets linked to sustainability, we try to get numbers and facts out of them on all of these things. The second is lab test reports. So we also take lab test reports of the products from our partner brands to ensure that the composition of the product, right, the features of the product are exactly as they are marketing. And the third is third party certifications. So I'll give you an example. This paper that I showed you and I talked to you about,
Yeah, yeah.
this is certified by the Forest Stewardship Council, which is the most prominent and credible certifying body in the whole world for any products that come out of forest. So paper, for instance, is FSC certified, this particular paper. So naturally, because such a credible third party certification has approved it, we naturally have reason to believe that it is definitely a fit sustainable product to be dealing in.
So basically, I want to ask like how much percentage of your revenue money like you have to spend on verifying all these details.
Okay, that's an interesting question. Well, since we're very early stage, we haven't really uh, tried to measure and track those numbers yet because it's not very costly at present, right? But I would say 5 to 10% of the revenue figures would actually be translating into the expenses behind our verification processes.
So basically, let's say if when you are scaling, right, you are scaling. So how do you think this number gonna go up or down?
No, it will
What?
certainly go down because
Mhm,
when we scale, we will get something that we call economies of scale, right?
mhm,
So naturally, when there is higher trade, when there is higher volume that you deal with, there are lots of costs to do with the
mhm,
inputs of manufacturing or to do with any ancillary, um, utilities that are required in the manufacturing. Those costs go down because you're producing a higher number of units. So economies of scale will allow us to bring this further down, and also tech advancements. Right now, AI is doing half the things out there, if not more. So by deploying the right AI tools, we can be improving our verification processes as well, and that is also going to help bring costs down. Also,
mhm.
just a heads up, I'm low on battery, so let's try to go a little
Oh,
faster. Yeah, we
yeah,
should conclude fast.
yeah. So one, what was I asking? Um, Wait a second. I forgot. I had a question, like a really good question.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah. So basically, you said, how you gonna scale? Because you said like you reach your customers through LinkedIn, you manually reach them. So how do you think you're gonna scale?
Right. So the thing about scaling is it requires three main things. One, of course, excuse me, is being certain of your PMF, right? That
Yeah.
you have finally arrived at that
Mm-hmm.
gold mine of an idea and value offering, which will stick in the market. So we are awaiting getting our PMF in place. The second is capital, right? So as I mentioned, we will be fundraising very soon. So once we are able to bring more capital in the bank, then that will be deployed towards a lot of areas, such as recruitment, such as more tech integrations, and particularly sales and marketing, because it's the sales that will help us grow, and the growth will bring in scale. So there is going to be a lot of fund utilization towards sales and marketing and relationship building. So all of this helps us scale. And the third thing is, of course, human capital, right? So
Yeah.
bringing in the best of contributors across various domains who are able to join Impacto and work here and innovate here and disrupt here, so that you know we are able to go closer to our vision, and having the right human capital by our side, that is going to be instrumental.
Yeah. So basically, you mentioned about the hiring people, right? So my next question is about the team. So how do you hire team? Like how do you make sure that the people that you hire in a startup, that they have the same vision as you? Because in startup you usually have like really less people, so you need them,
Correct.
to make sure that they have the same vision as you and they are putting like real hard work as you are putting.
Actually, the answer to that question is precisely what we are doing right now, an interview. So it is only after you ask multiple questions again and again and in various directions that you get clarity about the other person, right? So
Yeah.
when we are in our recruitment process, then that's what we do. We don't have any hard and fast interview structures, right? Because we're a startup, we're lean, we're frugal, and therefore we just try to have very freewheeling conversations with the people that engage with us, that are looking to contribute. And when we have those conversations, then we keep going deeper and deeper into trying to assess how their mind works, what their knacks are, what their personal interests look like, uh, and how it is that they can truly add value for us. Because it also needs to be a fit as far as human capital and organization goes. There are different kinds of fits, right? The
Yeah.
product market fit is only one kind. So there is also a high need for there to be a human resource and organization fit. So we try to discover that fit over multiple conversations with the people that are looking to engage with us.
Yeah. My next question would be, where do you see Impacto 5 years from now? And
Uh,
how? Sorry, I would like to add on this question. And
sure.
how do you see Impacto? Like, are you thinking that Impacto gonna go for the IPO, or you gonna sell it to some big giant like Amazon? Uh, what's your plans with Impacto?
Yet another great question. So I'll be honest, uh, because Impacto is the first venture that I'm properly doing. Edillery was more of experimentation. So technically, this is my second venture, but because I'm all in with everything, the very first time. So I don't have any, set parameters in place currently that, okay, this is what I want to do. I am trying to go with the flow, really move with the process, and then discover and then explore what lies ahead. So we are very flexible at this point, I'll be honest. Obviously, Impacto is my baby, especially because I'm a solo founder. So it's very hard to let go of a baby, early on in the journey, by having it acquired by a larger brand or something. But we're definitely open to options.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with your point.
Yeah, but to answer your question on where we see ourselves in, say, the next 5-10 years, I mean, if Impacto is what I continue to work on, all these years, then I think I see it as the single most credible and reliable trust label in the market. So, okay, let me ask you, when you think about shoes, right?
Hmm.
Instantly Nike comes to your head, right?
Actually, Nike comes to my head.
Exactly. When you think about e-commerce, Amazon comes to your head,
Yeah.
right? So when you think about various products or services or spaces, some big giant company does come to your head, right? But
Hmm.
if I ask you, what's the company that comes to your head when you think about sustainability and greenism and eco-friendliness and anything of that sort? If you think about climate, I don't
Yeah.
think there's any one
So I,
single giant company that would come to your mind. So
yeah.
that is what Impacto is going to be in the next 10 years. So that 10 years down the line, when anybody tries to, think about an organization that solely and wholly works on sustainability, then Impacto will immediately pop in the head.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I hope Impacto reaches where you're putting so much hard work. So I think yeah, it's gonna be I hope it's gonna be like Amazon for the sustainability. And
Right.
yeah, my next question would be you were saying that you're gonna raise some funds from are you gonna raise some like funds from the VC or like also one more thing with the funding is that like a lot of time, let's say when you raise funds, then you have kind of pressure from the person that hey, I need a return of investment on my
Correct.
the the money I've given you. So how do
Correct.
you to deal with that, and what's your stance on that?
Okay, so I'm on 1% battery. I'll answer that quickly. Let's make this our final question for the night. If you need another, set of questions that need to be answered, I can do that separately, maybe tomorrow or later.
Yeah,
But yes, as far as the mode of fundraising is concerned, we are very flexible. We are in touch with several angel investors also, who could enter our cap table as strategic investors, so that they can advise us as well as provide some initial funding for us to work with. And we are also in touch with certain micro VCs and VC firms, because we definitely need their guidance too. Because once we do raise from angels and have our runway, and once we're inching closer to the exhaustion of the runway, then we need to raise our second round, which is when it'll be more fit to be raising from a venture capital firm, right? So the
yeah.
exploration is going on in all directions. That's what I can tell you. And the second part of your question was,
Yeah, basically as you gonna raise funds, so you're gonna have a pressure on your head that
for
is giving,
ROI, absolutely.
how are you gonna deal with that? You need to give them
Correct.
R.
Yes, every investor needs return. That is the reason they're investing.
Yeah.
So that's why I mentioned in the very beginning that alongside the impact that we are targeting and going after, we are also going behind profitability. So
Mhm.
the return will come once the venture is being able to be profitable. If not profitable, at least once we're able to bank a good amount of revenue, right, to be able to give payouts to our investors. So
Yeah.
all of it, the answer lies in growth, right? It lies in market penetration. It lies in market expansion. So right now we are dealing only in India, but soon we are also looking at beginning exports. Very hopefully, one of the first geographies we do so will be Hong Kong. So so there are a lot of things on the blueprint right now, right? And there's like a whole map that we've defined as to what we need to be doing